Ray Engan, a story spoken, Ray Engan.
If you had lived on Apollo Road, you would have heard a lot of stories about my neighbor, Mr. Z. He's the first one I ever saw change the world simply by sharing his story. He proved to me that a story spoken heals hearts broken. Now, when Mr. Z smiled, it warmed the world. But underneath that warmth was a titanium toughness, a competitive core our neighborhood didn't understand. He played Scrabble as if his life depended on it, and often gave advice in his thick Polish accent. Heart may break. Never let life break you. Now you know. Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, a sunny summer Saturday, 6'7" Mr. Z, his son, and I playing basketball. As I reached for the ball, Mr. Z grabbed his chest. A heart attack. We stopped. Mr. Z kept playing. You see, he was down by 2. And he wouldn't lose. He picked the ball up, scored 2 quick hoops as the ambulance pulled in the driveway. He collapsed in the paramedics' arms. As they strapped him in, our eyes met. His pained look on his face disappeared. He gave me one of these. I thought it was a peace sign. Later, Mr. Z said, "No, that to remind you, I win by 2. Now you know." We were baffled by his will to win until a gray day in May, Mr. Z was our 6th grade show and tell. He started with magic. He could make coins dance back and forth on his hands. He made cards appear, disappear, reappear, disappear. We cheered. He stopped. Now, time to hear my story. Story should never disappear. He took us to Poland in 1940. He crashed his motorcycle, breaking his leg. German troops took him to Auschwitz. They set his leg, then broke it. Over and over, Mr. Z became a human guinea pig for survival techniques. They threw him in a pool with ice water filled with other inmates and made him swim for hours. He had to push dead bodies aside because the only swimmer that left the pool was the last one alive. The winner's shower had water. Most in Auschwitz didn't. He watched helplessly as over 1 million others died simply by entering the wrong shower line. He screamed, "It took 25 years to rid nose of smell of burning human flesh." Mr. Z was fearless. But sharing his painful story that day to 27 6th graders took another type of bravery. He shared tortures that he never wanted to remember, so another generation would never forget. We leaned in, inhaling Mr. Z's courage, when Mr. Z finally broke. In a room full of 27 6th graders, the only sound you heard were his tears. At 3'9", little Wendy Winter stood like a giant walked over and hugged Mr. Z's leg. One by one, we joined him. And soon, Mr. Z was the center of a sixth-grade sandwich. And his tears turned to laughter. His final words that day, "Now you know." And now you know. That day changed our lives to this day. 2 of my classmates became lawyers and offered families of Holocaust victims pro bono work. 4 became history teachers. And Mr. Z told his story to their classes, ensuring future generations would never forget. Even Mr. Z changed that day. He smiled more. Years would pass. A purse was snatched. Mr. Z snatched it back. The thief shot him. Shot him. Had you been standing next to the EMTs, you would have seen Mr. Z smile and heard his final words. "It took bullet to stop me. I win." Today, when I get to tell you about Mr. Z, I win. Because if you could look inside my heart, which broke the day Mr. Z died, you see a piece of it heal every time I get to bring him alive. Because now I know that history is simply his story. And Toastmasters have a profound opportunity to keep history alive. His story. Your story. Our stories spoken. Heal hearts broken. What do you have in here that can make a child out there think, "Now I know"? It might be uncomfortable to say it, and if it is, remember Mr. Z. "It took bullet to stop me." Never allow less to stop you. Madam Toastmaster. Thank you.